Tat. Therefore, na. Unto us, param, supreme, punyam, purifying, samvrita atam, as it is, akyanam, narration, ati, very, adbhuta, wonderful, yoga nishtam, compact in bhakti yoga, akyahi, describe, ananta, the unlimited, acharita, activities, upapannam, full of, parikshitam, spoken to Parikshit, Bhagavata, of the pure devotees, Abhiramam, particularly very dear. Translation, thus, please narrate to us the narrations of the unlimited, for they are purifying and supreme. They were spoken to Maharaj Parikshit, and they are very dear to the pure devotees, being full of bhakti yoga. Purport, what was spoken to Maharaj Parikshit and what is very dear to the pure devotees is Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam is mainly full of the narrations of the activities of the Supreme Unlimited, and therefore it is the science of bhakti yoga, or the devotional service of the Lord. Thus it is para, or supreme, because although it is enriched with all knowledge and religion, it is specifically enriched with the devotional service of the Lord. Translation, thus please narrate to us the narrations of the unlimited, for they are purifying and supreme. They were spoken to Maharaj Parikshit, and they are very dear to the pure devotees, being full of bhakti yoga. So this is the conclusion of the statement by the sages to Suta Goswami after praising him. So they're usually, to make a request, it is very impolite simply to request something. You have to introduce it somehow or other. So the convention is you start praising the person that you're going to make the request to. So they've been praising Suta Goswami and devotees in general, and the Supreme Lord. So now they come out with their request. Please narrate to us all about the Supreme Lord in the form of the Bhagavatam. So this whole first canto is narrated in order to give us a history of how the Bhagavatam came to be, was manifested in this world. So here it is being manifested through Suta Goswami speaking to the sages, but then we have the story within that, how it was revealed to Parikshit by Sukadeva Goswami. So these stories have all been told already. So the important point here is simply that, as was mentioned previously, these sages who had gathered together for 1,000 years were very qualified because they were obedient, sususha, they were humble, they weren't proud of their material knowledge, and here we find that they were inquisitive. So they're asking, please describe to us all about the activities of the Supreme Lord. We want to know. So they were inquisitive to know about how the Lord performs his activities in this world. In other words, they were anxious for spiritual knowledge. We can question, of course, why activities of Krishna's pastimes on earth or creation? What's the significance of that? Why do we have to be inquisitive about that? And the answer is that the activities of the Lord are, inherent in the very existence of the Supreme Lord. We cannot have the Lord without activities. He must have some activity. He can't just be an immobile, inert entity. Which brings us to the philosophical discussion of who is that supreme, or what is that supreme entity? So in the material world, people are not generally interested in such a discussion. They're interested in, why do we have to speak about some abstract entity? We're living now in the world. We have to understand what is my enjoyment here, what is my food, where is my house, all these sort of things. But as Srila Prabhupada has pointed out in the introduction to Bhagavad Gita, these are the questions that the animals also inquire about. Where is my food? Where is my nest? Where is my mate? Where is this? Where is that? All the material things. So this is not a unique quality for the human being. So therefore, if the human being is intelligent, he should also ask other questions. But the nature of material energy and the human being is such that we get bewildered and we continue to ask the same questions in variegated ways. So we may not ask the question like the birds are asking the question every morning when they're making some noise in the trees. And they're basically asking, where's the food? Or this is very nice food, or it's a nice day to get some good food, like this. We also do the same thing, but it's a little more complicated for us. In order to get the food, you need money. To get the money, you have to work. So then you have to ask, what am I going to do today for my job? When am I going to get my money, etc. And then once you get the money, then you have a lot of variety of questions to ask. What type of food I'm going to eat? And then we get all sorts of food. You got thousands and thousands of varieties of taste to choose from, which the animals generally don't have. They just eat, the birds eat the seeds or whatever, and the fruits on the tree, and that's it. They don't have too much choice. But human beings have, by their intelligence, created too many choices for us in terms of how to use our senses, our eyes and our ears and tongues, etc. So we preoccupy ourselves with the same activities as the animals, but with more complexity, with more variety. And then we get completely bewildered by that. So we find that people get obsessed with all of this, and it becomes some sort of illusion they're in. So from maybe our point of view, it's rather difficult to understand how can people get so obsessed with food. You know, we just eat the food and that's it. But they go to so extreme lengths to create variety in this food, and they get people excited about the food and whatever like that. So this is the nature of the senses of the human being. We get distracted, completely distracted. As the Upanishads say, there's illustrated in the Bhagavad Gita, there's a picture of the soul in the chariot. The soul's a rather pale, frightened living entity stuck in the chariot. And then there's a driver of the chariot, but the driver of the chariot's blind. And then he's got reins, and he's got horses. And the horses are pretty wild. They're just going anywhere. So the horses are your senses. And they're running off like this. And it's very difficult for the intelligence, who's the driver, to control those senses with the mind. The mind is the reins holding the horses, but the intelligence is there, and he's bewildered also, and he's blind as well, so he doesn't know where he's going. And so the horses are running around all over the place, dragging the chariot, and the soul is sitting there doing nothing. So this is what happens to the human being. Our senses pull us in all sorts of directions, and our intelligence, the intelligence of some make more varieties for us, and then we get attracted to all those varieties. We get excited by things in the material world. So, in other words, we're just getting dragged away by our senses. And then we don't inquire about who is this supreme entity? What is the ultimate nature of myself, apart from, the body? But these are the questions that we should ask. So therefore, when one approaches a guru or a spiritual master, one has to have this ability to ask questions, pariprashna. But then we don't ask about material things. We ask about, okay, who is supreme? What is supreme? How do I attain the supreme? What is the purpose of human life? So these are the questions we have to ask as a human being, responsible human being, rather than, where's the food, where's the house, and all this. Therefore, this is what is displayed here in this verse, where the sages are asking, okay, you tell us about the identity of the Supreme Lord, who He is. Of course, here it's Prabhupada translates here, narrate to us the narrations of the unlimited, Ananta. So that looks a little bit abstract. And it's, even in the purport, Prabhupada says, activities of the Supreme Unlimited. So this is, of course, taking the direct Sanskrit and bringing it here. So for some, they will appreciate this. Oh, yes, this is some abstract, infinite entity of consciousness. So that's, people are generally attracted to that. They want some higher entity, but they don't want to give it too much definition. So we just call unlimited entity, or supreme entity, supreme powerful, whatever, like the supreme omniscient being. So these are the terms we can use for that. So it's not incorrect. The person, the highest entity, is supreme, or param, and he is unlimited, but he also has activities, acharita, which is requested here. He has activities as well. So he's unlimited, but he has activities. So he is not an abstract entity at all. He's a very definite entity. So though it looks a little bit abstract in this request, if we go further and understand the context of the statement, they're all ultimately describing, please describe the activities of Krishna. So Krishna is not an abstract entity. This is the unlimited supreme entity with a particular form, a particular color, particular dress, particular qualities, and particular activities. Okay? So, in other words, it's not abstract at all. It is quite definite. At the same time, though we say God has a form and God has qualities and activities, we should not restrict or limit those concepts of form, quality, and activity by our material consciousness and our material perceptions, which are very limited. So yes, God has a form, but it is not like the form that we see in this world. All these forms here are destructible. He has qualities. The qualities of the material world are also changeable. A new item becomes old and broken. A color, an item of one color gradually fades away into another color. A beautiful person gradually gets old and not so beautiful. A person has wonderful qualities, but then they get agitated and they display different qualities, which are not so nice. So the qualities in the world keep changing as well, and they're not particularly attractive in all cases. We have to search for the wonderful qualities because we find so many bad qualities. So the qualities of the Supreme Lord and the spiritual realm are not like that. They're all eternal and they're all ideal, all perfect, and increasing in attraction at all times. And there is activities, but the activities of the material world are momentary. We do something and then the act is finished. Or a person achieves something, then that's finished. And every activity has a beginning and an end. And therefore, in that sense, it's never perfect. And even if somebody does a very wonderful activity, it's hard for them to keep doing that activity forever. So every hero and sportsman and whatever gradually decline, and they can no longer do the same thing. Every artist gradually declines. Every poet gradually gives up. He no longer has any inspiration to write anything. Every songwriter eventually fades out and is not writing anything anymore. Any musician the same. They have to retire because they can't do it anymore. So all the activities decay in some way in this world. So this is all very frustrating. So because people are frustrated like this, and they say if there is a supreme being or entity or existence, it can't have any of this. So let it have no qualities, no form, and no activities at all, because they're all useless. But we say no, no material qualities, no material form, no material activities, but nevertheless form, quality, and activity is there for supreme entity. And because he has all of these things, form, qualities, and activities. Plus, he has all knowledge, all experience, all bliss, etc. He is defined as not an abstract entity, but as a person, just like we are persons. Of course, person we can expand into say, well, so we're thinking, okay, God must be a human being. So that's a little bit primitive in one sense, because why should God be like us? We're forcing God into a conception of our idea of beauty. If there's a beautiful form of God, then it has to be like a human form with, human beauty or whatever. So that of course is prejudice if we're thinking from that point of view. Of course, the scriptures are very interesting because they say, no, it's not limited to human form. There can be many forms of God. He can be a bird. He can be an animal. He can be a half animal and a half bird. He can be a fish. He can be a snake. And they're all spiritual and they're all beautiful at the same time. He can be a horse. Some people like horses. So God can be a horse also. He's a horse, I agree, but he's a different horse. Because this horse, he produces the Vedas. He's full of knowledge. The Vedas come out of his mouth instead of neighing. He has the Vedas come out of his mouth. And God can be a woman even. So he's a woman also in the form of Mohini avatar. And of course, when he expands, he becomes Radha as well. So it's not just confined to one form of course, in the Christian concept, an old man sitting on a throne. No, you could have various forms, and some of the forms are not human. And even if they're human, they're also different. So we have the story of Vamana. He's a little boy, a brahmachari, and he's also a dwarf brahmachari, so he's very little. He's not a normal human being, he's a little dwarf. But he can expand himself to be bigger than the universe. And then we have huge entities also. Great powerful entities like Parsuram, a warrior with a big axe running around chopping people up. Or Kalki riding on his horse with a sword destroying everybody at the end of Kali Yuga. So we have some very violent forms of the Lord also. And then we have very peaceful forms like Krishna, who simply runs around in the field playing his flute. And taking care of the cows in a very humble way. So we get all varieties. And then it's not restricted. In the material world, we have limited colors of people. And some we consider good and some bad, and we have prejudices this way, which is a big controversy in the world now. But in the spiritual world, it's unlimited. So we have Krishna, who's black, and he's the most beautiful. And we have his brother Balaram, who's the opposite. He's completely white. He's also very beautiful. And then we have yellow forms like Lord Chaitanya, and some of the, of course, Radharani's yellow. And then we have red forms also, like Yagya, and charge of sacrifice. And we have green forms like Ramchandra. Blue, black, yellow, green, everything. All varieties of color in the Supreme Lord. So very unlimited. He has a form, but it's unlimited. It's not limited to one type of form or one color of form, one size, big, small, whatever. Or they can expand, as Vamana, very little, but he expands to be bigger than the whole universe. So therefore, that's why it says Ananta. He is unlimited in form. So the nature of the Lord is that he's smaller than the smallest. He can fit inside the smallest particle, which may be an atom or an electron or something in the modern world or whatever. So he's smaller than that. He can, in fact, he's so small you can't even measure him. And at the same time, he's called Vibhu, which means he is unlimited. He's bigger than the biggest. If we take the biggest entity, which is the universe, and all the universes put together, the Lord is bigger than that. He contains it. Everything is inside him. He is all-pervading. So there's no end to the Lord. So everything else exists within the Lord. That's how he is unlimited. So just in terms of size, he is unlimitedly big and unlimitedly small. Simultaneously, both at once, which is difficult for us to conceive of. But he is this because it's not material, it's spiritual. And then he has unlimited variety of forms, not just size, but the variety of forms. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita there, Lord Chaitanya says, the forms of the Lord appear within this world unlimitedly, like the waves in the ocean. So if you go down to the ocean, you start counting the waves. You can stand there for your whole life counting waves. And you go on with huge numbers that go on forever. And even if somebody else takes over when you die, they'll count forever also. The waves keep coming in like this. So the Lord keeps manifesting himself in this material world in all sorts of forms. In one day of Brahma, he comes more than 4,000 times. Just the Yuga avatars, there's 4,000 in one day of Brahma, plus we have the Manvantara avatars and the Leela avatars. Every day of Brahma, and he has 100 years, and there's millions and millions of Brahmas throughout the universe. So in this way, the Lord is appearing like this forever, inexhaustible. So in numbers of forms, he is also Ananta, not just size, but even in the numbers of his thing. And of course, the varieties therefore are also Ananta. And even if it's one variety, like Krishna's one form, boy, a 12-year-old boy who's bluish black in color playing a flute. Okay, it's Krishna, but then he can expand his form into unlimited forms also. So he was simultaneously in 16,108 palaces in Dwarka. Or he expands himself with 3 billion gopis, so we have 3 billion Krishnas in the Rasa Leela also, dancing with each gopi. So he can expand that form unlimitedly also. So in that way, unlimited. And then unlimited in qualities. Now in the Nectar of Devotion, we have 64 qualities of the Lord enumerated, but that's just to give us a little bit of a sketch of, to give us some idea of qualities of the Lord, such as modesty and intelligence and profundity and whatever like that, plus his 4 extra qualities. But actually the qualities are unlimited. We can't put a number on the qualities of the Lord. So therefore it is said that Ananta Shesha, who has, he's called Ananta because he got unlimited heads with unlimited mouths, so he can speak an awful lot. He can go on forever illuminating, describing the qualities of the Lord, but he cannot come to any end. It's also Ananta. So with his unlimited heads, he can describe the Lord for unlimited time, but still you can't come to the end of the qualities of the Lord. Because no matter what you say, he will manifest another wonderful quality. And if you describe that, then he'll have another wonderful quality. And each quality itself will change into a more wonderful quality. So there's no limit to the Lord's wonderful qualities. That's spiritual. Materially, it's not like that. It's all limited and destructible. Spiritual world, it is unlimited and eternal. And the same with the activities. We have in the 10th canto a list of the activities of Krishna, and described one after the other. He's born, he goes to Gokul, and then he grows up, and then he herds the cows, and then he grows up a little more, and then he goes and has Rasa Leela, then he goes to Dwarka, Mathura and Dwarka, etc. So we have a whole series of activities. So that looks, okay, it has a beginning and an end. Krishna is born, after 125 years, then he disappears, and within that he had certain activities. So it looks limited, it looks like us. And in the spiritual world, again, you'll have activities. Krishna going to the field, Krishna coming back at night, Krishna getting up in the morning. Again, it looks limited activities. But it's not. It's eternal. So it's difficult for us to understand how these activities can be eternal when they have a beginning and end. So just to somehow explain it to us, Vishwanath Chakravarti gives the explanation that Krishna appears in this material world, and he is born in the prison house of Kamsa, and simultaneously in from the womb of Yasoda, in Gokul. So it looks like a birth. Then it's finished, and then he goes on and grows up. So then it looks limited. He says, no, not like that. The birth is eternal. So as soon as this birth is finished here in the material world, it's taking place in another universe. And as soon as it's finished in another universe, it takes place in another universe, and then another universe, and another universe, another universe. So throughout the whole day of Brahma, Krishna is getting born in some universe. So the birth is eternal, and similarly all the other quality activities are eternal. Of course we can challenge that and say, well, that's okay as long as the universe is there, but then what happens when Pralaya takes place and all the universes dissolve and everything goes into Mahavishnu? Then there is no more universes. So then Krishna's birth ends, because he's not born in the spiritual world at all. So then the answer is given, well, by the extraordinary power of Krishna, though, factually speaking, the material energy ends, and everything in that sense ends. The activities of the Lord still take place with a birth in a Yoga Maya universe where Krishna continues getting born in different universes and all the other activities take place. In other words, inconceivable what the Lord can do. So with our limited mind, we should not try to project fault upon the unlimited nature of the Supreme Lord. So this word ananta means literally without end. Anta means an end. Ananta means no end. Ananta. No end. So no end to his form, qualities, and activities. It's extraordinary. Besides that, then there's one extra thing. That's his name. So any object should be defined by these things. A name, form, qualities, and activities. So that's what we do in science or biology or something. We identify species and genus, we give it a name. And then we define it in terms of why it's different from another form. This bug is a little different because he's got a little spot on his back or something, and it's different from the other one, so we give him a new genus or something like that. So we have the name, a distinct name, and a distinct form, and then they have distinct qualities. Of course, if they're the same genus and species, they may have the same qualities in general, but there's something a little bit different about them. They may eat a slightly different type of leaf or something like that. That's one of their qualities. And then their activities, of course, the same, slight difference. But then we get bigger changes in the bugs and stuff like that. Then they're going to have variegated qualities and variegated activities to distinguish them from the other groups. So, and the same with even inanimate things like molecules and matter. We give it a name, like an element, like nickel or iron or oxygen, whatever. And then it has its particular form. It's a combination of protons and whatever, plus and minus charges and all that. And then it has certain qualities. And then it reacts with other things in certain ways. That's its action. So every item we can define in terms of name, form, qualities, and activity in the material world. So spiritually also, same. Everything is distinguished by name, form, qualities, and activities. And they're all unlimited in the spiritual world. And related to the Lord, the names are unlimited. Forms are unlimited, qualities are unlimited, activities unlimited. And there are, just like there's unlimited forms, there's unlimited names of the Lord as well. And the other point is that one is equal to the other. The name is equal to the form, is equal to the qualities, is equal to the activities, spiritually speaking. In the material world, not so. We give a name to it, but somebody else will call it a different name, so it's not. But with Krishna, his name is equal to himself. It's equal to his form, qualities, and activities. So that's the mysterious nature of spiritual things. They're not limited. So that's particularly true of the name. Unlimited name, unlimited power in the name. So therefore, that is why we chant the name of Krishna, because this is the easiest access to realize the unlimited nature of the Lord through his name. It's the simplest process for us. It goes in the ear, and then it expands from there. If we are intelligent human beings, then we should be inquisitive, like the sages, to understand the wonderful activities of that Supreme Lord. And by getting that knowledge, then we get some inspiration to realize that form, quality, activities of the Lord. And this is all that knowledge is given in the Bhagavatam. Okay, any question?
Incarnation Hamsa, does the Lord come as a human-like form that's a Paramahamsa, or as a swan? Because I was reading 11:10,
Yeah, there is a form Hamsa, but actually that Hamsa form that's described in the Bhagavatam is a bird form, and it teaches Jnana, Yoga, Bhakti, and like that. Apparently that form is a Lila avatar, not a Yuga avatar. So when they talk about Hansa and they give them different names in the, I think it's 12th canto where they describe the different Yuga avatars, Rupa Goswami says that, who are these forms? So he says, Satya Yuga form is called Sukla, which is the color he is. So that's his name also. And he's called Rakta in Treta Yuga, and he performs sacrifices. And then he's called Shama in Dwarpa Yuga, and that's of course like Krishna. but usually it's not Krishna, so he's another form. And in Kali Yuga, he is Krishna color. He's called by that name. But that's not our Yuga where Lord Chaitanya is there, because he's yellow in that case. But they're generally just called by the names of the colors during those yugas. So not that form of Hamsa who teaches yoga, but rather the Hamsa who is teaching meditation and bhakti.
Seems like looking at the definition of giving, it seems like almost an impossible task for us to comprehend the unlimited nature of Krishna.
Yeah. So yes, of course, materially impossible, and spiritually also impossible, because the Lord is greater than us. But because we are free from our limited material identity, and we get the mercy of the Lord, we get a little bit of Gyan Shakti from the Lord in the form of Samvit, which is part of his Swarup Shakti. So as we get to Prema, then Samvit and Hladini Shakti is manifested in the Jiva. So that Samvit Shakti gives us the ability to perceive spiritually the Lord and everything about the Lord. So to some degree, because it's part of the Lord himself and it's in us, we can experience him and understand his qualities and activities to some degree. Not completely, obviously, because we're still dasa and particle in comparison to the Lord, but to some degree, by his mercy, we get a manifestation of his spiritual internal Shakti by which we can appreciate him and realize him to some degree.
So, if I understand correctly, when the Samvit and the Hladini Shakti manifest in Jiva, then you can understand Krishna.
Yeah.
But then the Samvit and Hladini Shakti are Krishna's energy, so when Krishna manifests within you, then you can understand.
Yeah.
So, in a sense, it's him that's understanding himself.
Yeah, one sense. It's part. That also is an explanation of how Krishna can become dependent on a devotee, and why he becomes dependent on bhakti. We say Krishna Karshani, the sixth quality of bhakti. Krishna is controlled by bhakti ultimately, but he's supreme. How can he be attracted by anything? He's independent. So then the answer is that bhakti is the Swarup Shakti of Krishna, and it enters the jiva. So the jiva has the Swarup Shakti of Krishna, so Krishna is actually attracted to himself. So it's not that he's not independent anymore. It's part of himself, so it's he's not submitting to anybody except part of his own energy ultimately. Okay, finish. Hare Krishna.